speaker to adjust his audio. So we'll just give us a couple of minutes. Come in, Vijay. We can't, you don't have your mic audio in. Please come in, Vijay. Not sure what kind of problem Dr. Kanabar is having. We just have to be patient and wait. Yes. Okay, so it logged out and come back in, I guess.
I can hear. Can you hear me now, Krishna?
Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, I can hear. We can hear you, but where are you? I mean, have you come in?
Oh.
Okay, we can hear you now. Okay, we're all set. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Great. Okay, so good afternoon, good morning, everybody. We have Dr. Vijay Kanabar from Boston University, who's going to do an introduction to the project management course. and the course itself will start in a couple of weeks. But today is the introduction, so that gives you some idea what the course is about. So I'm going to make you the panelist, Vijay, and you're on.
Oh, all right. All right. So I should go ahead and
show my screen. Yes, show my screen. Yeah.
All right. Are you able to see the screen now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go full screen. Is this still fine?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Good morning. I came in very early, so I guess the audio was disconnected. But let's go ahead. Krishna, you have the recording on?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Let me start off with the introduction, a little bit about me. I've been teaching in North America for the past 35 plus years. Within the context of the course, I'm the director of project management programs. I also teach in the computer science program and certainly teach a couple of management type of programs like analytics and so forth and so on. I'm also the founding chair of the Curriculum and Resources Project, which is sponsored by the PMI. So this is a multi-million-dollar project, and I was the chair that led the development of the world's first global curriculum. All right, so I'll go ahead and start with the key goals of today's session. And Krishna, you may want to mute your microphone briefly. Thank you. So the goals today are simply to introduce what the course is about and why project management should be taught in your school. And certainly we'll describe the best practices for teaching it. We'll introduce a project that can be used throughout the course. And in this case, I'll be introducing a graduation party to get our discussion going on project management. And we'll describe in a little bit more detail about what PM is, what is project management, and typically how we go about initiating a project. And finally, the last thing is I'll describe a whole bunch of templates which you will be turning in this course. And I'll illustrate some of the key knowledge areas. So we'll also wrap up this section with the next steps. All right. So we hope to provide you some idea of the competencies that one should acquire from a PM curriculum. And like I said, I'll be describing the term paper or group project that you will be. Participants will have access to quality teaching material. And that's one of the benefits of this course as well. So let's focus on our strategy here in the course. The truth is that almost all engineers, and if you are from a business school, a manager, all of you probably are using a project approach today to get things done. So it's a widely accepted approach. What we don't seem to be doing is understanding the key processes and appreciating or embracing the key standards. So this course will give you a chance to embrace some of the processes, and I'll also be talking about the latest standard from PMI and ANSI, ANSI standard. Our approach is to focus on initiating, planning, execution. We will not be doing monitoring and control phases of the project because there is not sufficient time, and the project you'll be doing is going to be pretty substantial in size. So we'll be focusing primarily on the initiating, planning, and execution phase. Having said that, we will briefly talk about the monitor, control, and closing phases. You'll get very good at project risk analysis, quality, cost estimation, and management. There'll be a whole bunch of practical cases that will help you teach your classes pretty well. A lot of the resources are based on the book, Art and Science of Project Management, which I've written with my co-author. You can purchase the ebook, or a physical book, but it's not necessary within the context of our course. I'll be giving you one chapter from this book, which will help you understand the key components. All right, so with this, we are ready to start our session today. And a simple question is...
Let me just add another response to this why project management. It's a very, very critical part of the accreditation process for engineering colleges. One of the 12 attributes of a graduating engineer is that they should be familiar with project management. So this is very critical for accreditation in NBA and output. Just wanted to remind faculty about that.
Sure, that's a good point. In the engineering curriculum today, across the globe, many faculty are requiring some exposure, if not comprehensive exposure, to project management principles and practices. And as Krishna just said, for India, it's very critical to educate students on this topic. If you look at that's true for China as well. China has mandated project management education. The reason for that is pretty simple if you look at it. Developing countries or even developed countries cannot take a chance with project failure. If you embrace project management principles and practices, you maximize your chances for project success. So when you are investing in any kind of effort or initiative, it's very critical to make sure that this new, unique adventure or product you are undertaking will succeed. The second thing is cost. You can certainly complete the same kind of project with very little project management principles being followed or embraced. But you'll find that in addition to the risk of failure, project failure, you'll find that your project cost is much more than it should be. So businesses and organizations today are embracing project management because it minimizes the cost of completing a project. There is also higher stakeholder satisfaction, both internal and external. Now let's talk a little bit about this URL. I'll see if I can paste this later on so you get a chance to see this. From a job market perspective, by 2027, employers will need 87.7 million individuals working in various project management roles. This would be program manager, project leader, project associate, various product management roles. But you can see that we are sitting somewhere here at 2017, if you look at the graph here. And we are just sitting at the tip of the iceberg here. Massive amount of growth is going to take place in this discipline of project management. So it goes without saying that in terms of a career opportunity, there will be a huge amount of need for project management roles. And I'll give you the link to this towards the end of the course. All right, so what is project management then? I would describe project management as A, B, C, D, E, and F. Some of you probably will recognize some of the components of this approach, but I think it's valuable to emphasize the earlier components, which is, let us say, the A phase. All right, so let me start off with A. A stands for aligning your project or portfolio to the goals of the organization. At any given time, you have the opportunity to do many projects. All right, so if you look at your needs within your current job at the moment, you'll find that there is a couple of different projects, but then very quickly you should narrow that down to the few projects that align with your goal. All right, so alignment is a key thing, and businesses have a strategic goal, businesses have a mission. Any project you do should align with that mission. Once you have selected a project that aligns with a mission, then the next thing to consider is a comprehensive business case. So what is a business case? A business case gives you a chance to narrow down the details of your project and to do a detailed financial cost-benefit analysis. What are the costs associated with this particular project, and what are the benefits? Right? You typically have focus on success criteria as well, and a few other details, but the key focus of the charter is viability, financial viability. If you are not able to demonstrate financial profit, I think you should not be moving to the next phase. So business case is a key component. Let me describe from my consulting experience what Fidelity, which is one of the global companies, I think it has their world headquarters here in Boston. In one business case, in one project, I was involved with a business case, and what Fidelity did is they had several competing project managers all engaged in coming out with a business case for a financial system. And the best business case was awarded the project. So, for example, you have the opportunity to identify the best team, the best leaders, the best consultants, the best vendors, best suppliers, the best approach for your project, and then you would demonstrate the profit and loss picture. Once this is studied, only one of the competing project managers is given the multi-million-dollar project for implementation. So Fidelity does it very nicely. They do a business case, but they do it very competitively, and they select the best business case for project implementation. All right, so now we are in the C phase. Now that you have a winning project, you have a winning business case, the first thing you'll be doing is creating a charter for the project. All right, The charter comes from senior management. The charter comes from the sponsor. The project manager might be involved in designing some of the components of the charter, but the charter for the project is typically coming from senior management. And there are many reasons for it. I'll describe them later on. Once you have a charter for the project, you develop a plan for the project. So this is a detailed plan. You'll identify all the various activities associated with your project. And the plan becomes your blueprint for project execution. So now we are in the execution phase of the project. We have a plan, and the plan is executed. Once the plan is fully executed, we have reached the end of the project, and that is the finish phase. Some of the key activities associated with the finish phase of a project would be administrative closure and lessons learned. Lessons learned is a key thing. If you do not capture lessons learned and gather intelligence, the next time you do a similar project, you will probably make the same mistakes. So the finish phase is an important phase that organizations should pay attention to. So let's recap. A, B, C, D, E, F. It's pretty straightforward. Make sure you do a project that aligns with your mission. Make sure you create a business case, and the business case will help you decide if you should invest in the project. Once the senior management decides that it's a viable business case, they'll go ahead and create a charter. Once they create a charter, the project manager is given the mandate to develop plans. Once the plans are created, you execute the plans. This is the execution phase of the project. And as a project manager, monitoring and control becomes key activities here. And finally, the closing phase of the project, where you finish the project. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. Project management. I've given you a broad overview. This is my definition of the discipline and practice of project management. And it is as simple as A, B, C, D, E, F. All right, so let us take a look at the next slide here. Oops, I have to. Take a look at the key players here, and there are internal players, there are external players. We believe that you have to engage both the internal and the external players within the organization. The internal players would be the sponsors, they would be other functional managers, there would be certainly the team itself, the project team, and the team members. These are all the key players who are internal stakeholders. On the other hand, I can give you several scenarios of projects that fail because they did not identify external players or external stakeholders. So in our project, you will be required to identify both internal and external stakeholders and describe ways in which you will engage them. All right, so we'll get pretty practical in the next few minutes here, where we try to give you a feel for the project and how we teach it here in the US, both in the industry as well as in academia. You'll get a feel for the key components of a project. What has worked very well in the past is identifying a project idea so that we are all working in a very cohesive manner on one theme. The theme will be, for example, sustainability or sustainable projects. So our goal is going to be identifying various projects that you will come up with that have a theme dealing with sustainability. All right, let's take a look at an example. In the past, we have had people say planting trees around the campus. That would be an idea. Another one is investing in recycling plastic, for example, or paper. There is an opportunity in many colleges to recycle paper and plastic and metal. So is probably investing in a project that does that would be a worthwhile effort. It will, if you come up with a project that promotes less printing, let us say more electronic documentation and less physical or paper documentation, that would be profitable, and you are also saving the environment. So in the very first class, we will be requesting you to come up with a project idea where you have 3 components. You will tell us. What is your project idea? Once again, try to focus on a theme that involves green IT, sustainability, anything. The second one would be to articulate the project completion date. And the third one is to suggest a budget. So very quickly in the first session, we will be narrowing down on this particular project theme. Once this is done, we will be requesting you to form teams. Quite frequently, we have many faculty from the same school, from the same college. You have the opportunity to select team members from the same college. Otherwise, we will assist you in forming teams of 3, 4, or something like that for your project. And since all of you have done the previous, let me go back to this one. Since all of you would have a project idea, what we will be doing next is project selection. And the project selection will require us to select the most suitable project for implementation. So your idea is going to be used for, will be used in a scoring matrix, and will come up with a project selection. Now, I will describe a simple case study in the next few minutes, which acts as the basis to illustrate the various components of the project you'll be implementing. All right, so let's take a look at your college. You have students who might be graduating soon in December or in April, most likely in April or May. Let's pretend that you are organizing. You are going to be coordinating a graduation party for them. So if you are doing that, in one sentence, what you would describe your project overview statement, as shown here at the bottom, is goal of the project to organize a graduation party within a budget of, I'll use a number such as $5,000, which is provided by the dean, and completed by May the 15th, 2018. So we have a project overview statement, and this forms the basis for the project that you will be completing. The POS is the starting point for every project, and it is having three components: the deliverable, the budget, and the deadline or the milestone, or which is the completion date for the project. Now, if there are 4 people and each of you have 4 different ideas for the project, then what we really have to do is come up with the best project. In order to do that, you have to create a scoring matrix. And in this course, in the second session, we'll be teaching you the principles of project selection using a scoring matrix. Basically, it involves identifying critical success factors and assigning weights to the critical success factors. So once you do that, the project with the highest number is going to be winning. All right. So that would be the project that we would identify for implementation in our course. Now it's time for me to request you, there are quite a few of you, to comment on, Krishna, if you don't mind, if they can answer this particular question. Can anyone tell me, now that we have a project in mind, let us say it is the graduation party, what kind of competency would you expect the project manager to have? So we have a graduation party. Let's pretend we have 1,000 students, maybe 500 students all graduating. Let's say there are 500 engineers graduating, and we have a project manager who has a budget of $5,000 to organize this party.
Let's have the participation from the. Yeah, go ahead, Vijay. I was sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Yes. So if you can type your response, what kind of skills do you think this person should have? What comes to mind if you're going to be a project leader or a project manager? So let's see if a couple of you can provide some response there.
Let's do it. Need some responses from the audience, from the participants. You want to make sure you're awake and listening and thinking and responding.
All right.
Go ahead.
Otherwise, we can call names, right, Krishna?
Okay, you go ahead. Yeah. In the meantime, they'll send it in, but it'll take a few minutes. But go ahead. Yeah.
All right. So we'll start with what we see here at the bottom. What is Shalini saying?
Shalini, Satyendra Bhatt, Rajeshwaran.
All right. So
Mahendra Sethi, Venkatesh, Deepika, Chirag, Arunanthan, Anuj, Anil. Let's get some comments. Here we go. We got somebody. People skills.
People skills.
Shalini says people skills.
Nice.
Rajeshwaran says should be able to manage the project within the budget.
All right.
Keep coming, others.
Good. Both are good point. People skills is one of the 3 dimensions of competencies. And when you say people skills, if you break that down, I'm sure some of you are typing responses. It would include leadership.
Yeah, passion for leading. That's the next one that just came up. Passion for leading. Order of activities. Yeah, working in a certain order, specific planned order of activities.
Being able to plan. Yeah, very good. When you order, you're talking about planning. Nice. Yeah. So having technical abilities. Mm-hmm. Excellent. And someone has question marks, but I guess that's probably the response we have.
Yeah, that's the response I'm reading out. When there's a question mark, means they did put a response, and so I'm reading them out. These are the responses that have come. Yeah.
Very good. Thanks.
Okay, I think you go ahead.
All right, so let me go ahead and describe what I have here in my list here. Leadership, some of you mentioned that. Some of you mentioned skills that are people skills, which would certainly include working with teams, building a team, motivating the team while the project is going on is very important. Communication is possibly the most important competency that you should have. You'll be communicating with internal stakeholders, external stakeholders. There will be changes happening, so it's very important to have good technical communication skills. That means writing emails, writing a good report, writing the good templates we'll be presenting to you in this course, such as a charter, scope statements, or risks, or whatever. But also being able to communicate one-on-one with stakeholders and being able to influence them. So negotiating and influencing, all of that goes with communication. And quite frequently, you have to make a good, swift decision. So decision-making skills are very important. And certainly, you have to be politically and culturally aware. Politics is big in project management. You are competing for resources. Sometimes the very same resources are working in functional departments, but they are working for you as well. So when you have a project, what typically happens is you are borrowing resources. Some of these resources are part-time, or you may get them full-time, but the original manager wants to use the resources. So having the ability to manage politics and the issues stemming from politics is very important. What certainly all of you listed is technical competencies. Those are all very important, which is project planning, identifying the best life cycle, the best processes, being able to identify risks, creating a quality plan. All of those are important capabilities. So good. Very early on, you'll have to ask, what is the must-have versus nice-to-have? You can't typically, if your project is going to be struggling, you will have to sacrifice something or the other. For example, if you don't have sufficient resources, you might end up sacrificing schedule. And if you have sufficient money, then you might be able to invest in additional resources. But a key thing to ask is, what is important to the stakeholder? So let us describe this approach that we use when communicating with stakeholders. What is your constraint? What is critical? What is not as important? And what are you willing to optimize or sacrifice? So let's take a look at 3 attributes which you can try to communicate using this table with your stakeholder. If the stakeholder tells you that, look, we have $5,000, we are not going to have even 1 rupee more or $1 more, then you understand in this context that your constraint is you're going to identify cost as your constraint, and you will say that this is critical. Now, this is a tic-tac-toe, which means you can't use the same column again. So let us look at schedule. The next discussion is, if cost is important, then something is less important. What would that be? Maybe then they will have to decide whether we are willing to sacrifice the schedule, or are we willing to sacrifice some aspects of the performance. What do we mean by performance? What we really say here is, are you willing to have the graduation party with, let us say, no, no alcohol. Let's just use the word alcohol. No wine. We won't have any drinks there. What you're really doing there is sacrificing performance. No wine will be served. We'll have dinner. We'll have games, but no wine. Now, what you're willing to sacrifice in that particular case is quality. And then the third thing, what you will optimize is the schedule. So the party does not have to be in April the 15th when there are very few rooms available. Maybe we will have the party on the weekend when more rooms are available and they are cheaper, because cost is an issue. So you can see that using a tool like this helps you understand what the stakeholder considers important. If you fail to do this and identify and document this as a project manager, pretty soon you will be optimizing the wrong parameters. You will be investing more in project quality, embellishing the quality of the project, making your project more expensive, and very seriously disappointing your project sponsor, who will probably consider your project as a failure. All right, so this is one of the earlier templates that you can leverage either in a face-to-face meeting or informally with your project sponsor, and try to narrow down the constraint. This constraint is then documented in the project scope statement. All right, so let's move on to the next few slides, and I will very quickly show you what the students will be doing before I wrap up. So you have a good feel for clear the marks, erase products. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of key things you will be doing. One of the first deliverables you'll be completing is a charter. Once again, the charter is a key document, the most important document probably that launches the project. And if you don't have a charter, you don't have a project. So we believe that this is an important thing. Early on, you should identify the stakeholders. You create a stakeholder register. So you'll master the art and science of creating a stakeholder register. And within this, you will be ranking the stakeholders. Not all stakeholders are critically important. Some who have high interest in the outcome of the project and happen to have high power, which is this particular section over here. This particular stakeholder with high power and high interest should be the one that you will focus more of your resources. If there is someone with low power and low interest, well, they may not be, they happen to be on your project team, but they are not going to influence your project anyway, in any shape or form, either positively or negatively. You may want to keep an eye on them, but you don't necessarily have to invest a lot of your resources. And the other two categories are high power and low power. So you will be documenting this, and we will be having some discussion on the stakeholders in the course. So it's a very important topic. Next, I will show you the scope statement, which would be, I'll be in the case studies we have, we will discuss sample scope statement, and we will be requesting you to come out with a scope statement that identifies the objectives, success criteria, milestones, constraints, and a few other attributes. You have a choice to suggest a life cycle, I will be describing agile project management approach. And so you might be able to suggest that, okay, we can implement our project using an agile approach or maybe a mixed approach. So the life cycle is the next thing you'll identify, and that will play a key role. At this point, you are ready to break the activities of your project into packages. The work breakdown structure gives you an opportunity to clearly understand the scope of your project at the granular level. So we will be doing this. At this point, I will be introducing two tools to you, Microsoft Project and one Project Libre that you will be using. So you'll have access to the open source free version of it, where you will enter your tasks. You'll create a work breakdown structure. And once you do that, you'll be able to print something like this. So you'll be able to identify a WBS using Project Libre, and you'll be able to show this to us and share your work breakdown structure for your project. Once you have done that, you are in a position to estimate the effort associated with each of the packages at the lowest level. I'll be describing something called the Rule of 40 to help you with coming up with a cost estimate. All right. We are then ready to allocate resources for each of the WBS elements. The resources can be human resources, but certainly there are resources that are non-human, for example, material resources. So we will be introducing to you both types of resources. You will then enter them into your project schedule. Milestones. You can identify milestones for the party project. So if I ask you to think a little bit for the party project, what do you think the milestones would be? All right. So since we are running out of time, I'll let you think about this for 10 seconds. And then I'll go ahead and give the answer. So what are the sample milestones for the party project? You will be doing that for your own project. You'll be identifying 7 to 8 milestones. Well, for the graduation party, one of the milestones would be the completion of the initiation phase, where we have acquired the finance and the budget from the dean. Maybe you decide to collect additional money for alcohol or wine from each of the participants. All of that would be the first milestone. The next milestone might be completion of the planning. The third milestone would be preparation for launch, making sure that's complete, and then your project completion. So those would be the key milestones. Once again, we'll be giving you comprehensive tutorial to creating schedules, inserting milestones, coming up with estimates, both top-down estimates and bottom-up estimates. The tool will also teach you how to identify the critical path. The critical path is the most important path you will manage as a project manager. So we will teach you the principles of forward pass, backward pass, float, and then demonstrate how you can come up with the critical path using either both Microsoft Project and Project Libre. One of the skills you should have as a project manager is compressing the schedule. Once you enter all the activities, you may find that you're missing your deadline, the deadline for project completion, which means you have to compress the project. And project compression would require you to understand techniques like crashing and fast tracking. So we'll introduce you to fast tracking and crashing a project. These are key competencies that engineers, project managers, all of them should have. Now, talking of the soft skills, if you think about the graduation party, one of the risks we really have is the weather. We might have rain, and our 1,000 people who are going to be outside are going to get soaked and drenched. So it's very important to have a risk management plan to identify the risks and have a mitigation plan as well as a contingency plan for the risks. So you will be doing something like this for your project. Focus on quality is very important. If you are able to identify key metrics, and we'll show you how to locate metrics for your project, if you can do that, you'll be able to plan, assure, and control your quality by focusing on those metrics. The HR plan is complete, should be complete before the execution of the project. You should have all the staff acquired before the project starts. You'll have a sample HR plan that you'll be completing. And finally, a communication plan. If you recall, I mentioned communication is the most important competency. All right, so if you have a good communication plan, you will avoid the mistake. You will avoid mistakes like ignoring certain stakeholders for certain key milestone meetings. So that's very important. A lot of focus and cost estimation in our course. You will be using various tools and techniques for top-down estimation as well as bottom-up estimation. So you'll probably enjoy this aspect of the course where you learn top-down and bottom-up cost estimation, which then eventually leads to budgeting. So you have a time-phased budget, which can then help you with the earned value analysis. So for project control, even though we will not be executing a project, I will be focusing on earned value analysis so that you appreciate the principles of cost variance and schedule variance, and you should be in a position to describe as the forecasted estimated completion for hypothetical cases. All right, so let's move to one last thing that we may ask you to do is to hypothetically consider a change to the project. What will happen if there is, let us say, a key resource working on your project skips? What is the best way to handle changes? The ability to handle changes is very important, because all projects will have some sort of a change, and the ability to have change control is critical. So this would be the last template that you would complete in your course, and with that, you will be presenting the key highlights from your project. This is about 7-8 slides where you describe the goal of your project, the plan, the risks you have, your quality focus, and lessons learned, what worked, what did not work, and if you were to plan a comparable project next time, how would you go about doing it? So with that, Krishna, I will pass it back to you.
Yeah, right. That's great. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. That was a very nice overview, introduction to the course that we will be having. So where you will get more details on the actual course. We've had a few participants, kind of trying to, get more responses to some of the details, such as, what happens if the cost is high? What happens? What is the importance of cost stage? Scope? What is the meaning of scope statement? What PCAC? And so some of the details, which unfortunately we won't have time to cover today, but that's exactly the point. This is just an introductory webinar for the course, so that if you actually take the course, then you will, when you take the course, you will get all the detailed understanding of all the terms and the questions you had. So I'm not going to go into that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make myself the presenter and quickly go over the schedule so that you have a good idea of what is coming up, and you can sign up for it. As you know, there's no free lunch, so there is a cost associated with the program, and the introductory webinar was today. It was supposed to be 3:30, but we had to unfortunately move it a little bit. The schedule, it consists of 6 webinars. As you can see here, it starts with the September 27th, and then the Wednesday in 3 weeks, the first webinar, and then every alternate week there will be a webinar. And so the 6 webinars will walk you through all of these items that have been listed and described by Dr. Tanaba today. You will actually go through an actual exercises, hands-on exercises, while you are participating in this webinar. So be prepared to actually do some work and not just listen to what is being said. So with that, you want to add anything to that, Vijay, before we say goodbye to everybody?
No, I mean, the previous professors and instructors have really appreciated the content of this. They have leveraged the free resources that we have given them, both the tools as well as the curriculum from Project Management Institute, and they have embedded this into their curriculum. So it's very nice to get feedback from many people who have graduated.
Great. So we're hoping that if you have, if you are signing up for this course formally, do it by this Sunday, September 10th, so that we have a good idea of who's going to be part of the program. So with that, I'm going to say thank you and Jai Ho to everybody, and particularly thank you to Dr. Vijay Kamanakanaba for taking the time early in the morning for us here. And so, Jai Ho. Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.